Would you like to learn about an ADHD mom's journey of how she became more of herself to succeed in her life and business? Then stay tuned for today's episode with Theresa Lear Levine. Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Vasallo. And each week, I will bring you amazing guests so that you can tap into the courage to break out of old patterns and live your soul's purpose. Before we get into this episode, if by the end you enjoyed it, please follow, rate, review, and share the podcast so we can reach more people. Because here's the thing, I'm on a mission to close the gender gap in the podcasting world so that more and more women's voices are heard. If you feel that this is something you value too, then please take action by rating, reviewing, following, and sharing the podcast. We can only do this together. Check out the link in the show notes to see how this is done. And make sure to stay until the end to claim some free gifts I have for you. Welcome back to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And today we have Theresa Lear Levine with us. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Tanya. I'm so excited to be here and finally get the opportunity to talk. As we were saying, we've been rescheduled a few times, and this is the day we're going to make magic.
I know. I'm giggling because that's what was happening right before this call. We were talking about how the universe aligns and there's just divine timing because there have been several cancellations for things that you're an expert in. So it'll be interesting, just like how to deal with things that don't go your way, life, deaths, nervous system breakdowns. So Teresa's the author of the book, Becoming More Me, and she's also the host of the podcast, Becoming More Me. So share with us, Teresa, where did that come from and how did this evolve, Becoming More Me?
Oh, absolutely. So Becoming More Me is the name of my business, as you said. So it naturally seemed like a good title for my book. Now, since then, we actually have the subtitle. I know we were recording this before the book's even launched, but the subtitle of the book is Tapping into Success, Subconscious Secrets of an ADHD Entrepreneurial Mom. So that kind of sums up the flavor of the book and also my life. So being a woman in her mid 40s now, not knowing that I actually had a diagnosis for ADHD until I was about 42, but it's been with me forever. My life has been lived in a very creative, kind of not always within normal boundaries kind of way. And in the most recent years, I've been kind of learning how to adjust and make things even better now that I know that that's what's going on. And I also, around the same time that I was diagnosed, launched this iteration of my business where I use emotional freedom techniques, otherwise known as tapping, and hypnotherapy in all sorts of ways to help other entrepreneurial women up level, break through their blocks, things that you're familiar with, like money blocks and all the ancestral stuff that we carry on unknowingly, and all of our limiting beliefs, and just really rewrite the script to our lives, because that's what I needed so much. So in writing this book, I was able to look back at all the things I've been through and dealt with in my own life, my own little mini traumas and things, and also look forward as to where I'm going now through this new, more open lens of awareness and consciousness that the techniques I embody bring forward in such beautiful ways.
There's so many questions that I have for you on your journey. So on ADHD, ADD or ADHD, did you say before?
They used to have both, and it could be either attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now it's all just ADHD. I actually did an entire podcast on my show, Becoming More Me, all about the H in ADHD, because a lot of people will say oh, but I'm not hyperactive. But there's so many ways that hyperactivity can show up that aren't necessarily physical restlessness.
That makes sense.
So everything falls under that one umbrella. I don't really like the umbrella anyway, because the umbrella of ADHD ends in disorder. And I personally don't look at it as a disorder. I like it as a superpower most of the time for myself. But of course, there are ways that we get in our own way. And that is one where I stumble sometimes.
And I think that's important. It's interesting. And so I want to ask you about this, because what made you, obviously, you must have felt something of the way you move through the world, the way you process information, that you decided to go get diagnosed. Was that part of the story?
So I'm a mom of 4 boys. So at the time that we're taping, I have a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 18-year-old. Just went off to college. And all of my boys that are old enough to be diagnosed have ADHD. So I went through all of their diagnoses and all of the different ways that different treatments either did or didn't resonate with them and get them better or worse results. And there kind of came this point where I was like, okay, they had to have gotten this somewhere. It was not from their father. And so maybe I should look within a little bit and see what I have going on, because one, it's going to make them feel even better about what they have going on, knowing that like we share this and we can work on it together. And, mom's okay, they're okay. We have never, ever made it a negative thing. There are times when my kids drive me bonkers because of their hyperactivity, but it's never been like, oh, you're ADHD. That's really holding you back. It's always been, well, you're so creative, you have all these interests. My one son would have a different interest that he would like really, really hone in on and get almost expert at like every few months, but it was always switching and changing. I was like, that's amazing. Like dip your hand in everything, try it all. And I remember my youngest son, who is the only one who hasn't been diagnosed at this point, but probably has it. When he was like 3 or 4, he'd be building things and making these really creative train tracks and things. And he'd be going, this is why I think I have ADHD, because I'm such a great builder and I know how to like, make Legos work with, this dinosaur track that I have, and I can build using the macaroni boxes in the closet. And like, all of his creativity, he saw as this thing that he wanted to be part of, like the rest of us.
That is so funny. And then what made you get the boys diagnosed? Bless your heart, mom of 4 kids, because I have one only, and she hasn't been diagnosed with ADHD. We actually did an evaluation, but she scored higher on certain things with executive functioning skills, with certain things with like shifting, but she does have sensory processing disorder. Again, it's all these labels, and we can talk more about this, of like, well, do we want the label of disorder behind it? Or can we just say that you process information differently, or you are,
Right.
attention
Neurodivergent
deficit?
seems to sum it up
Yes,
better. Neurodivergent, just having differences in the way our brains work. I kind of prefer that. But still, for at least in my world and with what people relate to with what I do, ADHD is kind of the one
that's
that
what they
people recognize.
understand.
I got them diagnosed mostly because of issues we were having at home. My kids have always been amazing at school. Like they're the kind of kids that don't really need much help with homework. They're pretty driven, self-starters. They get good grades. Their teachers are always like saying great things about them. But at home, it was a little different. And, with an 18-year-old, like I hadn't come into knowing and practicing and embodying all of these ways of regulating myself so much when he was little. My oldest son is from my first marriage. I went through a divorce after that and met my current husband, and we had the subsequent 3 children together. There was definitely a different style of parenting. I mean, every child is, when you have multiple children, every child's raised by a different parent, really. Even if you're the same mom, it's a different version of mom for each one of them, because mom changes along the way. So the kids, kind of being difficult to manage at home was probably the reason why I had my oldest diagnosed, because he would drive me crazy with his just constant, like all around, just bouncing off of this and that, and always into something else and not following through on things and all that kind of stuff. So in my mind, not knowing what I know now, it's like, something's wrong, must go to the doctor. And then once I recognized what it was with my other kids, it wasn't so much, something's wrong or any kind of panic. It was just like, what are they going to respond to best? What do we want to do? Do we medicate? Do we try natural options? Do we change diet? Do we change bedtimes? Like there's so many different ways that you can work with ADHD. So every kid is different. Just like they all got a somewhat different mom out of me, I got somewhat different ADHD outputs from them.
This is fascinating to me, though, that you were so calm, because I had no idea with this. Like it was the teachers that brought it up to our attention with my daughter when she was 4. They're like, oh, she kind of like self-soothes and she's just on a swing for 40 minutes in the playground. I'm like, what are they talking about? She's pretty social, like, why is she on a swing for 40 minutes? So they're like, you might want to get her checked for sensory processing. I'm like, what is sensory? Like, to me, it was a huge thing. Like, I'm like, oh my God, what did we do wrong? How is this possible? Instead of seeing your response that you're like so laxed about it, like, oh, let's see what we can do. Now I'm the opposite. I'm like, okay, let's get her to the
Yeah.
OT. Let me get tools. Let me see how we can help her. And I think that's the negative connotation of labeling these things instead of just saying, okay, here are some tools to understand your child and how you can best serve your child and yourself at home. Like you're saying, because if they were good at school, that's awesome. But what do I do? Because the kids don't come with manuals, there's not a guide, parent's guide to how to parent, So what made you be so relaxed? Because I'm sure there's listeners out there, whether they might feel that they might have ADHD or some type of neurodiversity of some sort, or there might be with their kids or their spouses. Like, how can we approach this in a more organic way like you did? Like, I wish I would have responded that way instead
So
of like with the
first of all,
panic.
let's be very clear. With the first child having diagnosed, I was not super lax and calm and had it all together.
Okay.
I've evolved and, I still have my moments. But I think I've always been somebody who wants to look within, like understanding that like I am the only thing I can control kind of thing. And for them the same. It's like, okay, so how can we take this into our own hands and do things? And my business, even before I had becoming more me, like even when it was like nutrition and fitness and all that stuff, has always been about like human optimization at the end of the day. So it's like, how can we like optimize what we've got to work with and just make things better and keep them getting better and better? So I think with what I know now, and I'm not saying this is how I did it back then, I would probably use the tools that I use with my clients, something like EFT tapping, or I think EFT tapping would actually be great for this. If you're worried about things with your kids, working on your feelings about it really matters more than anything. Because for the most part, especially if we're just dealing with things like ADHD and stuff, I'm not talking about more serious potential like diseases and things like that, although same protocol, it's just a little bit different. But something like this, I mean, it's like, I already know now. I have one that I've raised through it. He's responsible adult now at 18. And, he's off to college doing his thing. I'm like, it's going to be okay. Like, I already have seen that proof through time. So, if you're new to it, then I would probably approach it by trying to like regulate your own nervous system around it. And just kind of like with the tapping is, even though I feel so stressed out about this, I don't know what's going on. I feel uncertain, who knows what's going on? Did I do this? Like all the thoughts that are going through your head, I love, accept, and forgive myself. And we set that up. And then you just give yourself a chance to go through the tapping points, which if you're listening and you're not watching, the main tapping points when you're doing tapping are the side of your hand, the karate chop point, top of your head, your eyebrow, the side of your eye, under your nose, under your mouth, your collarbone, and under your arm. Go through those points and just let it rip. Like, you don't have to say anything that doesn't feel totally authentically true to you. You can say that you're scared. You can say that you're worried. You can say that you think it's your fault. You can, wonder how you contributed to it. Whatever those deep, dark feelings that are making you so worried about it are, just let them rip. And then as you go through those points a second and third time, maybe you start opening up and realizing like, I can actually get a little deeper breath right now, feeling a little perspective. To me, I've always felt like it's like going from the front row at a crazy concert where like maybe people are like stage diving and stuff. And it's like great to be up front. And it's so cool. You got that front row seat, but you're also kind of like, and then like you raise up to like the club level seats where like you have safety and you have cover and you still can see everything. And that's what doing a round of EFT feels like to me. It's like I've gone from like the unsafe, like front row, super cool, but don't want to be there, to like safety, protected. I can see everything. I have awesome perspective on exactly what's going on. And now I can make a rational and logical decision and move forward.
This is awesome. We'll dive a little bit deeper with nervous system, but just for anyone that's listening, if you are not familiar with the emotional freedom technique, that's what the abbreviation EFT. Teresa will have some more things at the end of the show.
I'm happy to give like a brief overview about what it's about so that it can be better understood by listeners.
And we can have it in the show notes too.
Oh yeah. I did just like dive right into that without much of a preface, but emotional freedom techniques is like psychological acupressure. So it's kind of like acupuncture without the needles and with the combination of getting to talk through things. But what happens, unlike with talk therapy, when we're doing emotional freedom techniques, is that we're sending a signal right to the amygdala, the part of our brain that runs that fight, flight, freeze, fawn programming that all of us have in one way, shape, or form. And it sends the calming right there. And it also resolves energetic blockages. So we have this whole like meridian system in our body where energy flows, our life force flows through our body. And when anything happens that, creates like a bothersome memory or dis-ease for us, the foundation of any dis-ease in our body, whether it's a physical or an emotional dis-ease, is an energetic blockage. So as we tap these meridian endpoints and voice the issue while going through those points that I mentioned, we release the energetic blockages and we gain emotional freedom from those feelings that never were us to begin with, but that sometimes really feel like they're running the show. And that can transform so very much.
Yes, this is fabulous. I've used EFT too with clients. It's one of the things that we teach in Money Magic Miracles. It's part of one of the modules too, because I think it's such a great tool to have in your toolbox. Mm-hmm. But I will ask you, Teresa, because I had this asked by a client that she couldn't do EFT. Well, first off, I'll ask you, how long do you take through your round of EFT? Like, what could be on average? I know it could vary, but like, what would be on average, you say, for anyone that's listening and it's new?
But I feel like if you were rushed for time and you really needed to get through something, a very simple round is 2 to 3 minutes.
Great.
But
so it's easy.
Yeah, it is easy. Now, you and I are going to do a little bit of tapping after we record, and that's going to be available for listeners to, see the recording of and stuff. But that will probably take us about 10 minutes. So, but I'm going to really get into the nitty gritty of whatever it is that you want to tap on, and also shed light on a lot of tips that people can use to make it relevant to themselves. But it doesn't have to be complicated in order to make yourself feel better. You can literally, like if you're worried about your kid and their potential diagnosis or their potential health issue, like we were talking about, you could do something as simple as setting it up on the side of your hand and saying, even though I'm worried about, put your kid's name in there, I love, accept, and forgive myself. You could do that 3 times right there on the side of your hand, same thing. And then you could go through the points and you could literally just say over and over again, I'm so worried. I'm so worried. I'm so worried. And just go through the points 3 times through. And that's all you need to do. And then just focus in on the feeling that you're having while you're doing that. And you'll be surprised how much changes just with that simple round.
Do you do it with your kids too? Do your kids do EFT?
I would be happy to. But what mom does is not always the coolest thing to be doing. You know what I mean?
I get you. Mm-hmm.
So my youngest is happy to embrace it a lot more often than my oldest. But my oldest is old enough to know, okay, this is what she's doing, and maybe I could do this. So like he's told me, well, I prefer journaling, Mom. I'm like, okay, well, that's not as nervous system regulating or whatever, but if that's working for you and you're actually expressing your feelings as an 18-year-old boy in this world, it's probably more than what most 18-year-old boys are doing. So I will take it. They have awareness of their options and they have all tried it, I would say, at least a handful of times, but my littlest one is probably the one that'll come to me the most. He loves to come and like tap if he's had like a bad dream the night before, or if he's nervous or excited about something in a way that makes him feel nervous, then he'll come and we'll do a little tapping around.
I appreciate you sharing that because I've tried it with my daughter and it's kind of like she rolls her eyes, but she's curious about it. So I'm like, okay, the seed's planted, like if she wants to come back to it, great. But right. I love that your older one, because that was going to be my next question. But before I go to the next question, what I was saying is that one of my clients was saying that EFT wouldn't work for her because she had OCD, obsessive compulsion disorder. So like the constant tapping was like throwing her off with like, she couldn't do it. So my question for you is, what other tools do you have in your toolbox? Because I know you do hypnotherapy, or like in your son's case that he said he would rather journal, like what other techniques or tools would you recommend anyone that's listening to calm their nervous system, because we're going to get hit with our nervous system getting shut up at some point or other. No one is perfect. We're
Well,
all
yeah,
humans.
and we can get regulated 1 minute and something can come and dysregulate us the next. So I always say the best thing my clients walk away with, or one of like the extra advantages, is understanding when they're dysregulated and being able to get back into regulation over and over again for the rest of our lives. So it's what's necessary. But as far as other tools, or in the case of your client who felt like EFT wouldn't work, EFT is actually amazing for OCD, but you'd probably have to calm her nervous system in a different way first in order to open her up to that. EFT is so gentle. Like, it's the tool I go to for all sorts of stuff that people have never wanted to talk about, never wanted to face, all that kind of stuff, because I can go in there so gently and without re-traumatizing things and really make a huge difference in a short period of time. But if somebody was really adverse to it, I'd start with hypnotherapy, because hypnotherapy is like a sleep of the nervous system, where we can just kind of get past that subconscious gate guard and, get in there. We can reprogram some things. We can deliver some suggestions. And for anyone who's not familiar with hypnotherapy, no, it is not like the, stage shows you see in Vegas where people are like making chicken noises and all that that is actually real and does happen. Like, it's not staged, but that's not the kind of hypnotherapy we're talking about here. And any suggestions that are made during hypnotherapy, your mind's only going to accept the stuff that's intended for your highest good. So it's not like somebody can come in and start trying to get you to take on suggestions of things that wouldn't be helpful for you. People are often surprised, like when we work together, how awake they feel during a session, because I'm talking to my clients through hypnotherapy. We're going through, scenes from their past and regressing and letting the subconscious mind lead us to all sorts of aha moments. And they remember all of it.
That's great. Can you tell us some stories about hypnotherapy that worked for you or with your clients, without saying names, obviously confidentiality and stuff, of just how we can regulate, because I know it's not everyone's familiar. I've known about hypnotherapy too. Again, I think because we both, walk in this world of, that's interesting to me. I want to understand the subconscious mind. I want to understand our conscious mind. To me, it's a familiar subject, but there might be people listening that they're like, oh, I've never even tried hypnotherapy before. Like, what stories can you tell us about why you started using it, or why you became interested in learning about hypnotherapy and becoming licensed as a hypnotherapist? Like, what's your story?
Absolutely. So I have personally I've seen a hypnotherapist myself for many years, and it's always been really helpful to me. I feel like, talk therapy is really helpful, but I think that things like EFT or hypnotherapy just take it to a level that you can't get to when you're just talking to somebody. So often, we talk, we feel better for a little bit, but then something comes and triggers us, and we're right back where we started because it wasn't resolved on a subconscious level and it wasn't resolved on a nervous system level. So being able to resolve on that level really allows people to, keep taking new steps forward and elevating, aligning, and regulating in new ways. So let's see, I'm trying to think of a good story to tell you. So I had a client come to me who kept feeling like she was getting like really into this like freeze state almost anytime like little things would happen. I know, like, we were talking before we started recording about, giving excuses for why you're running late and things like that, and how some people will just say like, nope, just can't make it, or I need to cancel or whatever. So when she would get like a short answer like that from somebody, whether it was her husband or her best friend or whatever, and it could have just been the normal way that they communicated, she always felt like she had done something wrong and she needed to make it better, and that like she couldn't really kind of get her mind off of whatever had transpired until it was resolved. So she often found herself not being and showing up as her authentic self because she felt like she needed to fix something between the two of them, if that makes any sense. So we went to explore this whole thing of, why these little things kept kind of bothering her so much. And I linked back to 3 different scenes that we visited that all involved like relationship with her mom growing up, and her mom's passive aggressive behaviors and ways that she would give her the silent treatment. And oftentimes, she grew up feeling like she was always doing something wrong, even though it was really just her mom's issues. She hadn't done anything. And we were able to really rewrite the script on that for her. And even just after the first hypnotherapy session, because when I do a session with somebody, we do all of it in the session, and then they get a recording to listen to for 21 days. So that really drives home, what the change is that they really want to have happen in their lives and gets it rewired. And even by the end of the session, she just said she felt so much better. Like the issue that she had been dealing with at the current time was with her husband. And she was like, oh, I feel so good. Like we're going out to dinner tonight. And I don't feel like that tension between us. And it's like, he hadn't changed anything. Nothing had changed about this. It just, she changed. And then, the following week, she'd said she had an encounter with her friend that normally would kind of set her off. And something had been said that normally would have kind of fired her up and made her feel like, retreating and just kind of closing off. And she's like, didn't happen. She's like, I was actually able to just talk to her and ask her what she meant. And I didn't worry about it at all. So, and that just, we show up in the world in such a different way when we change our minds, And I give that example because it seems like something so little, but this is something that affected her hours every week. Hours of her time and energy went to that. And the thing that I think a lot of people don't consider, especially when they're thinking about doing therapy and they're feeling like, oh, well, I don't have it so bad. We get into this kind of comparison sort of thing. I remember when you were on my show and we were talking about ancestral stuff and money and everything else. And the whole story about like kids are starving in Africa or Ethiopia or whatever came up. Do you remember we talked about that?
Uh-huh.
I actually ended up writing a similar story in my book about that because my grandparents always would say that to me. And I know that when I would have blocks in my life regarding feeling guilty about not following through with something, whether it was like I purchased a course and I didn't finish it, or I didn't follow through on a commitment or whatever else. It was always that like children are starving in Ethiopia crap going on in my head that I needed to resolve. And it wasn't even mine, but little thing, 5 minutes when I was a kid came up over and over and over again. So with that new consciousness and that new awareness, we get to show up differently in our lives. And then the situations that used to be an issue, they aren't anymore. We free up our time, we free up our minds, we bring ourselves back to the present moment, which is the only place we have any power. So if we can't get our energy back to the present moment, we can't do anything. We're either leaking it to the past, to hanging out with my grandparents at the kitchen table, being upset that I didn't finish my dinner, or we're leaking it to the future, being worried about whatever we're worried about. But if it's not right here, you can't do anything with it.
Yeah, that's huge. So when clients come and work with you, Teresa, do you just kind of see what's keeping them stuck and then decide if you're doing hypnotherapy or if you're doing EFT, or is it a blend of both, or coaching? Like, what's your process? Like someone comes to you because they're feeling stuck with something, and where do you take them to from there?
Yeah. So it kind of depends on whether they're working with me in my hybrid program or one-on-one, but they're very similar. Hybrid, we just have like group calls also. So that I like, infusing group is always helpful. I feel like to discuss things because you always get new angles and advantages that you didn't quite consider because they're not your own. But either way, both formats meet with me one-on-one. So in those one-on-one sessions, we always start with an in-depth consultation where I really want to know everything about like your life from like birth to now for the most part. So I can kind of create this timeline of when things may have happened or what we need to revisit, what little mini traumas are still lurking in the background or big traumas are still lurking in the background. So I know where our time needs to be spent in the months that we'll be working together. And then we dive in normally with EFT to start. And then we'll do hypnotherapy within a few sessions or as soon as they really want to. And once they know those tools and how they're working for them, then we can kind of gauge if we want to, alternate sessions, or sometimes I like to do hypnotherapy and then use the next session to work out things that came up in the hypnotherapy session using EFT to further resolve like scenes that came up that brought up memories and things like that. I just kind of like piggyback the techniques and really allow the client to lead the way. Obviously, whatever is top of mind for the client and is feeling like it's stealing their energy from them and taking their power from them is what we need to work on. And also we need to look back in like the things that happened a while ago, because sometimes we don't see how much they're pulling from us. we can see what's happening here and now and understand what we want to be different or whatever else, but we neglect the fact that it's those things that happen back there that need to be addressed in order to fix what's happening here and now. And I'm not a proponent of hanging out in the past any longer than we have to, but I do feel like if we can go way back and we can start knocking over that first domino of where it happened, then it knocks over all the other dominoes, and we don't even have to do a whole lot of work when it gets to the stuff that's happening here and now. It just starts to resolve itself.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to look at, every single part so that you can move forward. You do have to look at parts of the past and see, like you're saying, that first domino piece that's making everything else move forward. So becoming more me, when you started this business, it's the title of your book, it's the title of your podcast, it's your business. What made you come up with that title? Like, was it because you got diagnosed, and like, where were you and what point in your life that you launched your business with this name?
Yeah. So that business emerged right before the pandemic. And that is when I was diving into my master practitionership with EFT and hypnotherapy and all of that, and adding those tools to my already existing coaching business with fitness and nutrition and health. So it got to the point in that business where I realized that people weren't willing to do the deeper work to actually get the physical change they wanted. And I was like, I just need to be doing a whole different thing right now. And that was a becoming process for me. And also, just gosh, when I started to do EFT on a regular basis on myself, it's like every day I just felt like I was becoming more of the woman that I wanted to be in this world. And my clients would say the same thing. So it just naturally was like becoming more me, just fit. It had nothing to do with ADHD in particular. It just had to do with me feeling like I was becoming more and more of who I wanted to be. And also realizing that was always going to be in process. There's no place where we arrive. So, it's not like even when I work with people and we get done with the program, their work's not done. Like you can't think that you're going to come do this and then there's nothing else to do, but at least you leave with the tools that you need to be able to continue the process on your own. So we're always in progress.
I love that. It's so true. The only place we're going to arrive is at our death. When we get to the end, that's the arrival. But
and
it's
even
how
then,
you,
is it really the end? Like we
yes,
don't even know.
we don't know. You're right. So what's your routine then with EFT? Like, how do you do it? Do you wake up in the morning and do EFT, or like, tell us a little bit about your daily routines and habits?
Yeah. So I normally wake up and do hypnosis. I love that, we have these two natural gates in our day where we're in trance state naturally. And that's when we're waking up and when we're going to sleep. So those are beautiful times. If you ever like listen to hypnotherapy tracks, or if you do like yoga nidra or any of those beautiful practices, it's a great time to just get those in there deep. So that's usually what I do before I get out of bed. And then with EFT, it varies. So I use the technique both as a band-aid, as if like, if my kids are getting ready to come home from school, which they will be in a little while, and I feel anxious or stressed, which I don't right now, I might just go, okay, I'm just gonna take 5 minutes and just get myself regulated before they come home so that I don't like leak any of this bad juju onto them. And then I also use it for deeper work. So I might be like, I still haven't gone over that thing that happened when I was, 15 or whatever. And now that I have an hour, I'm going to actually go through the layers of that myself, which I'm pretty good at doing. But even for myself, like traumatic stuff, I would prefer to work with a practitioner on. And I feel like, especially if you're new to the technique or if you have trauma, work with somebody on it that can walk you through it. People are going to see other angles that you don't see. But then as far as my routine, I get a lot of benefit out of the work I do with other people. EFT especially has a really cool perk to it called borrowed benefits. So I could be working with you on some past trauma or whatever it is that you wanted to work on, and I could have my own stuff going on in my own system, but it's resolving as I'm focusing on you and doing the work with you. So I get borrowed benefits as I work with clients throughout the day. And it's also why at the end of the day, I'm not burnout and overwhelmed and tired either, because it re-energizes me. It keeps me aligned and everything else. So on days when I'm going to see clients, I don't worry a whole lot about doing my own stuff unless I feel like I need to. And on other days, I'd like to take, 5 minutes in the morning before the kids get up or 5 minutes before I go to bed and just kind of focus on whatever the one thing is that just feels like, if I could move that just a little bit, what would be different for me?
Thank you. That's great. You just mentioned something about working with other people, like if you're going with trauma or something like that, that you would want to work with a practitioner. And
Yes.
I'm a big believer that we can't do all this stuff on our own.
No.
That's why we hire coaches, therapists, teachers, anything else, because like you said, it's our human potential. If you want to be the best version of yourself, if you want to heal these things,
Yeah.
you're going to have to hire other people. So what's your perspective on that and working with other people? Because obviously you're like, no, I had trauma, I'd work with someone else. Talk to us a little bit about hiring other people, trusting other people instead of trying to figure it all out on our own.
It's pretty much just what you said. Like, we weren't intended to do this on our own. And I know I spent a number of years trying to do as much as I could on my own. And all I did was suffer the consequences of being stressed out, worn out, run down, and not being my best self. And then I finally realized that there's no award, reward, or like badge that you get for doing everything on your own. I was like, okay. So, I mean, I hire all sorts of people to help me with all sorts of things, and it enhances every part of my life. And I always say, I have another resource that I can give you the link for your show notes for called the Better Therapy Checklist, that I would never work with somebody that isn't working with other people. If I went to interview a therapist or a life coach or a business coach or a money coach or whatever, like, I want to know who they're enriching themselves with, and like where they're getting furthering their education or their knowledge, or staying passionate about what they're doing and how they're doing it. Because I think it's really easy to get into kind of like a dull routine as a practitioner or coach if you're not continually evolving yourself in some way purposefully. So yeah, I think it's important to do that. And with something like trauma, we're definitely not meant, or grief and things like that, we can't really see exactly what's going on a lot of the time. We definitely can understand how we feel, but getting to like why we feel that way, or how to feel differently, or what might actually change things for us in a positive way on our own, is often out of our reach. Otherwise, we would have done it already, right?
Yeah, that's so well said. Thank you for putting words to that, and it goes for everything. It's like you're saying, if you're hiring even a doctor, sometimes I wonder, like I've made my own mistakes, with doctors, and I'm working with a functional doctor that kind of has my best interest, whereas the regular doctor, I'm like, are you furthering your education, or did you just get your degree 20 years ago and are
Right.
practicing now? So I think it's very important. I'm a big believer too in hiring people and having your support team, basically. It's a good way of moving through life and for ourselves to grow too.
Yeah.
I have a
I'll mention this real quick here because it fits. I also relate very much with high functioning anxiety. And that's the kind of anxiety where it's like kind of propelling you forward and helping you to do things, but also it's like burning you out and exhausting you. And most people that have that or feel that way also feel like they need to do things on their own. There's a certain perfectionistic element of it. So seeking help means that you have to out yourself. And that is a position that most people don't want to put themselves in. So just saying that to let people know, like, even from somebody who feels that way, like getting help is like one of the best things that you can do, and you will not regret it.
That is fascinating. I never heard about high functioning anxiety. Tell us a little bit more about that. I want to know, like, what are the symptoms? Is it like check, check, check? Like, do I fall into that?
Okay. So like I kind of started to say, high functioning anxiety is like, it has a lot of, if you're perfectionistic, it's probably there. It's the feeling of anxiety, the anxiousness, and also like going it alone with a lot of things and feeling the self-imposed pressure to accomplish a lot. But it does drive people. So it has an upside, because usually people that have high functioning anxiety, they're high functioning, they're getting things done, they're doing things. And often they feel like if they were to take the pressure off of themselves, that somehow they would maybe get lazy, not do things, not follow through. And it's really fascinating to see what happens when we actually do take that pressure away and we realize it's kind of like a big inner critic sort of a thing, where you're kind of beating yourself up to get there, like kind of whipping yourself to get across the finish line, when you really could just be doing it with love.
This is interesting. Would you think that it's correlated with time too? Like not having enough time. Because as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, I wonder if I have something of that sort, of like, but I don't think I have the perfectionism aspect of it. It's a part of me is like, not good enough, like for many years, like a while back, I could have fallen into that category of perfectionism.
Right.
For many years now, it's like, nope, just progress versus perfection. It's good enough. Like those are the mantras I tell myself. But I do suffer sometimes of that aspect of, wanting to do it all myself. And I think for me, it weaves in with poverty and time. This is interesting, because we've talked about mindsets and subconscious and this constant, there's not enough time. There's not enough time.
Yeah.
So there's
Like
this
this time
underlying,
scarcity and stuff, which
yes,
it's difficult for me to separate the two because I relate to both the ADHD and the high functioning anxiety. So sometimes it's like, well, where does one start and the other end, or one begin and the other start, but I would say for me, at least, even though I was capable of, and still am, but with less self-imposed stress, of making pretty awesome things come to life and manifest in my life, a lot of times the outcomes would fail to align with my values and make me feel fulfilled. So, for instance, I wanted to feel this calm, clarity, and confidence in my life. And instead, I was living in confusion and these constant cortisol spikes and chaos, And then it would become this cycle where I would continue to create more of the same thing I didn't want, because law of attraction, what we focus on, we create, and the things that we do become habits, and those neural pathways get pretty well ingrained. And it starts feeling, and here's the thing, it starts feeling safer to live in the exhaustion and the chaos and the burnout than it does to have spaciousness of time and peace within, because it's so much less familiar to us at that point. So it's about making the unfamiliar familiar and the familiar unfamiliar.
So yes, that was going to be my next question. How did you go about doing that? Because I've been working on, especially now, I just got back from, a 5-week trip or whatever. And that was one of the things that I wanted to resolve, of just slow down, Tanya. Like, you don't need to be like, just to give you an example, I try and get my daughter out of the house by 8 o'clock. We take turns depending on the day of the week, but it's more days. But when I do it, it's by 8 a.m. She needs to be out. It's like, you have to be ready, done, and so I take responsibility, if my husband's listening to this, I take full responsibility that sometimes, it's not every day, but sometimes I do create that anxious energy. And he'll reflect that. He's like, I'm going to slow down a little bit, or we need to do our morning gratitude because the energy, like, he's just speaking in general, but obviously it's directed towards
I'm there
me.
with you. I have all the tools. I still do it.
And so, but now I've come back, Teresa, and this is like a great, like, I have my classes, my morning study with the Napoleon Hill Institute. It's always at 8 a.m., right? When we leave. So what I started doing with her is, Isla, I'm not going to put any pressure. Just so you know, it's 10 to 8. I'm going to go. I'm already ready. I'm going to wait for you in the car, and I'm going to start listening to my class. The longer you take, the less recess you're going to have when we arrive at school. And it feels great. So now that's becoming my new familiar. But my question to you, because I'm still working on this, like you're saying, I think sometimes it feels better and safer to stay in that anxiety, and that's why I'm curious if I qualify for this. What did you call it? High functioning anxiety?
Yes.
I hope I don't, but I'll look more into it. But
it's not like a diagnosis like ADHD. It's just, you might have it sometimes and you might not other times.
It's just to pay attention. Yeah. Like, just
it's
to see
like I said before, even though I'm worried that maybe I have this high functioning anxiety.
Yes, I'll be tapping on it.
Forgive myself.
I do forgive myself, whether I have it or not.
The anxiety about the anxiety.
I love it. Yes, I do have anxiety about the high functioning anxiety. But how did you start making it more familiar for yourself? Like, where it's...
If I was in your shoes and I was trying to do something like that, I'd probably go straight to hypnotherapy. with EFT as like a backup for resolving things that, still need a little help during the like 21 days that you're listening to things. Because through that, like you could find out why you feel that way. What is it about those mornings with your daughter that gets you so anxious? Why
Yeah,
do you
because it's so
feel like,
stupid.
yeah, I mean, but what is it? Because it's probably something not, it's not that exact situation. It's something else that's led you there. And we could find out some aha moments about that. And then we would work into transforming things into like what your life looks like without that problem. And that's what I feed into you in those audios that you listen to for 21 days is exactly what you want your life to be like, so that you really create that visualization and that new subconscious programming so that that becomes you.
That is awesome. Yes, that's fascinating. And I love working with the subconscious mind. So maybe this is something to talk about off show and see what we can do about it of high functioning anxiety. And I'll start tapping on it. This has been fabulous, Teresa. Like, where can people find you? And I know we'll have a bunch of things in the show notes, like you mentioned, but for anyone that's listening and can't look at the show notes right now because you're walking or exercising or something.
Yes, I think the best place to start would be by going and grabbing the resource that I'm going to give you guys that's going to have the tapping that Tanya and I are getting ready to do here. And that's by going to theprivatesessions.com. So, of course, I can be found everywhere by my name. I'm at Theresa Lear Levine on Instagram. That's my website, teresalearlevine.com. You can find me by my name very easily. But I would grab that resource because there's over $10,000 worth of EFT tapping in there, and you are bound to find things that are going to apply to you and make a difference in your life.
That is awesome. Thanks for that. And the one thing I love asking my guest is, what's one thing that listeners can do to live a life with more courage?
I think it's about developing confidence develops better courage, but not confidence where you feel like it's this not fleeting kind of thing where you stay confident all the time, but it's the confidence to be able to fail or to be able to do something and not have it turn out the way that you hoped, and to still know that you're able to get back on your feet and keep going. And I think that's an amazing way to develop courage, and confidence is one of my favorite things to develop through the tools that I use.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I love your energy and just the exchange. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Those was fabulous. Have a great day, Teresa. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I am so grateful that you joined me today. If you enjoyed it, there's one thing I'd like you to do. Click on the follow button so you don't miss a single episode. Leave me a rating and a review, and please share. As my way to thank you, email us a screen grab of your review at the email in the show notes, and we will send you a free Crafting Your Future guided visualization, which is so simple to do with outstanding results. It will empower you and give you the confidence to attract and create the life you've always desired. See you in our next episode.